Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. We have a big show for you today. Not only is it, of course, our Rankings Tuesday, going over the NFL Power Rankings and the College Football Top 25, but we had an awesome doubleheader in football last night, a 5-touchdown masterclass from Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, a bad day for the Buccaneers, and a walk-off kick in Arizona. We also have the tip-off of the NBA season this coming later tonight. We will talk about everything that's going to happen in the NBA season, predictions, finals, and of course your NBA champion. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you'd like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 22nd. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show in the NFL talking about a doubleheader, starting off in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson goes out there in a game that was huge, a must-win for the Buccaneers after the Falcons took a loss to the Seahawks over the weekend, a game that the Bucs needed badly. The Baltimore Ravens come in and in their 5th consecutive game get the victory. Lamar Jackson had an absolute masterclass, vaulted himself, in my opinion, to the top of the MVP ladder, an MVP race that has been very muddled, very much no one taking the lead. We had possibly a Sam Darnold, possibly a, Jared Goff is someone that I think is up there. But now especially after the game that Lamar Jackson had, very similar to last season, a Monday Night Football game, vaulting him, to the top. Now, we are only just about halfway through the season now, so anything can happen, but having a nice lead, in my opinion, in the MVP race halfway through the season does mean something. Lamar Jackson starts off just a phenomenal game, and it was a weird game script by the Baltimore Ravens, right? They start off this game, they don't use a lot of Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry has been amazing, leading rusher in the NFL, leading touchdown scorer in the NFL, and we saw all of that, especially in the back end. He came in as a closer, ripped off an 80-yard run, ripped off a 50-yard run, just put down the Buccaneers when they needed them to. But I want to focus a little bit more on the Buccaneers before we continue with the Ravens, because this is a trend that I've noticed with this team when we've talked about them for the last couple of weeks. The Buccaneers, in their game against the Saints last week, in their game against the Ravens this week, in their game earlier on in their season against the Falcons, that's 3 straight weeks. 3 straight weeks where they have jumped out to an early lead. They started off the season 3-1. They jumped out to an early lead in each of these last 3 games, and they've ended up losing 2 of them. Obviously, the overtime game to the Falcons, and then this one to the Ravens. Even in the one that they won against the Saints, they let all of these teams come back against them to either tie or take the lead at some point in this game, and it's a very concerning issue. It seems like the Bucs constantly take their foot off of the gas pedal. That's 3 straight weeks where they've gotten a lead. Against the Ravens, they were up 10-0, rolling early. Looked like they were going to make it at least 13-0 when Baker Mayfield threw an interception in the end zone, and then the wheels fell off. Against the Saints, they were up 17-0. They end up losing. They end up giving up 27 straight points. That's ridiculous. You can't do that. They end up coming back and winning that game, putting up 51 points. Against the Falcons, they were up big as well at halftime, and then they let the Falcons come all the way back and win in overtime. This is a concerning trend for a team that otherwise would be, in a good position, even with all the injuries that they've suffered, especially in this game. This was a brutal game for them, not just because they were unable to hold a lead for the 3rd straight game, but because they lose not only Mike Evans, who reports are will be out until after the Week 11 bye, which sucks, but they also lose Chris Godwin for the season on a garbage time play, and it sucks. He broke his ankle on the play. He's not going to play the rest of the season. He might not even come back as a Buccaneer ever. He's going to be a free agent, and I don't know what the Bucs are going to do there. Now they're going to have to rely on the likes of McMillan, on the likes of Sterling Shepard, on the likes of Trey Palmer. These aren't your great wide receivers. You still have Cade Otton, solid tight end, but he's not going to be your number one option over there, or at least he shouldn't be your number one option over there. They have a lot of issues with the offense, and that defense is prone to giving up big plays. We saw it a lot in this game. Rashad Bateman got loose in 50 yards downfield multiple times, one of those ending up with a touchdown, the other one ending up with just a 60-yard gain, right? This was just a masterclass by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They managed that game well. They managed the game in such a way that, getting over to the Ravens a little bit, ESPN was concerned that Derrick Henry was hurt because he wasn't in for most of the first half, but they were using him as a closer. He's a guy that they want to use in the playoffs. Playoff football gets more physical. You want a guy like Derrick Henry, a bruiser that can just wear everybody down, especially in the playoffs. And if they can continue the way that they are playing, there is not a lot of teams that can slow down this Ravens squad. This Ravens squad is playing elite football. They have won 5 straight games. They're really good right now. Getting over to the other game. You didn't have ESPN Plus, you didn't see it, which sucks. I don't think they should hide football games behind an extra paywall. I really don't. I honestly. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. They've been doing this for a while. They're adding it to a whole bunch of streams, but that's a whole nother conversation. I want to talk about this walk-off field goal by the Cardinals. Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray both played very different styles of game, and, obviously, at the end of the day, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals get the win, but this was nothing. This was nothing like what you expect it to be. This was a defensive battle by these two teams. The Cardinals defense showed up, and I don't know if it says more about the Cardinals defense or the Chargers offense in this one, because Justin Herbert was playing great football. He really was. He passes for almost 350 yards, but no touchdowns. Jalen Reagor was probably wide receiver 1, maybe Ladd McConkey there, but still, you have these guys that are not being viable options in the pass games. Quentin Johnson, injured. You have Josh Palmer, who I thought was going to step up big this year, has not been able to do much of anything. Will Dissly got 11 targets in this game. He was the leading receiver, going 18 targets, 11 catches for 81 yards. That is not a normal stat line for a tight end, especially one that's kind of been half buried in this depth chart with how many tight ends are participating in this Chargers offense. This was a great game by Justin Herbert, and yet again, it doesn't come out with a victory. I know there's all these Justin Herbert truthers out there, and you can lump me in with that. I'm big on the Justin Herbert boat. But the fact of the matter is, they're not winning around him. And you hate for that situation to continue to happen. But Kyler Murray didn't play a great game. He really didn't. He had that one run, that 44-yard scramble to basically put the game away. And besides that, he wasn't able to get much downfield. Marvin Harrison Jr. did not get involved in the game very much. I don't know if that's on him or on Kyler Murray. The announcers really wanted him to get the ball. They kept pointing him out on every single play. If you were watching that game, that's one of those things that I took away. They were like, what if you were the quarterback, if you were the Cardinals drawing up this play, what would you do? They did that like at least once every other drive, and they'd be like, just give the ball to Marvin Harrison, and they'd highlight him, and then he wouldn't get the ball. Or every once in a while he would get the ball. Or in the red zone, they would be like, if I'm in the red zone, you know who I'm going to rely on? Marvin Harrison. And I get it. He's an intriguing talent, but you have a lot of other things to talk about. You have a solid offense. James Conner put up an awesome game. 100 yards on the ground, another 50 through the air with a screen pass that ended up basically winning the game for them, getting it rumbling for 35 yards down the field there. After breaking a tackle, James Conner played great football. He forced a fumble as well to get an extra possession for the Cardinals. It didn't end up mattering. What really sticks out for me in this game is the fact that you don't expect the Cardinals to be able to win a gritty football game, and yet they were able to go and do that. That is a game that, with that game script, you would expect the Chargers to win. But no, the Cardinals come out on top of a gritty game, and it's just because they're able to get into the end zone. If the Chargers cannot find a way to get into the end zone, they're going to continue to lose these close games. And I understand it's the first year of the Harbaugh era, right? It's going to take a minute to get everybody in, and they're dealing with injuries. But still, they need to be able to win football games like this if they want to be respected this year like a lot of people expected them to be. This is a solid Chargers team, but it's got a lot of holes. And I pray and I hope that Justin Herbert gets the team around him that he deserves, because my God, is he an elite quarterback in this league. He just doesn't have the weapons, or when he does have the weapons, he didn't have the defense/special teams to win games. And it sucks because that just seems to happen all the time with the Chargers. But let me know what you thought of these two games. I thought they were both really good. I was very impressed by the Cardinals. I was very impressed by Justin Herbert. I was super impressed by the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and I'm very concerned about the future of the Buccaneers. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to the world of basketball. NBA season tip-off is tonight. We go over our predictions. We go over playoff teams, and of course, a finals matchup and a winner. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the doubleheader of Monday Night Football games that took place last night. A 5-touchdown, 0-interception performance from Lamar Jackson, absolutely demolishing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. And of course, a walk-off field goal by Chad Ryland and the Arizona Cardinals to get them back in contention for that division. In this segment, we turn our attention over to basketball. The season starts today. Tip-off is tonight. We do a full season prediction here for you in just 1 second, but before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it, or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as Tuesday, October 22nd. But like I was saying, we're getting into the world of basketball after an awesome, just an incredible postseason from last year, where that saw the Boston Celtics finally raise the trophy for the first time in this era. You got a lot of first-time rings over there. They got everybody back. We're going to start in Eastern Conference over there because the Celtics are coming in as heavy favorites yet again for good reasons. The Celtics might have found a way to improve already a juggernaut of a team, bringing in some quality depth and bringing back everybody that was vital to that run from last season. That is a massive get by the Boston Celtics. They are really, really playing with that second apron. They're over it. They're paying a lot of money to these guys. And eventually it's going to come crashing down, but they're going for a back-to-back. See if they can be the first ones to do that in almost 10 years. The Celtics are going to be great. But there's a couple other contenders in the East that I want to touch on. The East obviously is a lot weaker than the Western Conference this season. Outside of the Celtics, which are the favorites in my opinion to come out, you have the Bucks, the Knicks, the Magic, the Sixers. Maybe you throw the Heat in there because they have that Heat magic. Four teams. I want to start off with the Knicks because they've had a very interesting offseason. They go from nearly making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, falling to the Pacers in a do or die Game 7 at the Garden, to having a wild offseason. They trade for Mikal Bridges, whose jump shot looks absolutely broken in the preseason, but it's just the preseason, so we're not going to read into it. And then they pull off the blockbuster deal of the offseason, the big one we were waiting for, trading for Cat. After losing Isaiah Hartenstein, they didn't have a center. Mitchell Robinson, especially, not being able to play until around January, but that still leaves a lot of questions. This is a Knicks team that is built to match up with the Celtics, but I have a lot of concerns about the defense down low. Their perimeter defense is going to be elite. It's probably going to be the best perimeter defense in the league. But when we take a look at everything else that's happening on that team, Jalen Brunson running the offense, you get Cat down low. If you get a guy like a Joel Embiid to just go ham on the inside, I don't know what they're going to be able to do to stop it. Now, obviously, they're going to have a guy like Mitchell Robinson back by the time the postseason comes around. Fingers crossed for the Knicks. But it is a concerning thing. They have a major weakness that you can exploit. They're still going to be a really good team. And I think the Knicks are definitely contenders in the East. Other contenders in the East, the 76ers, they bring in Paul George. I'm not sure how much that really extends their window. You get two very injury-prone stars, one of which already got hurt in Paul George with the 76ers. Joel Embiid said he wasn't going to play back-to-backs. I think they're going to struggle a little bit in the regular season, but if they get to the postseason, if Joel Embiid is healthy, if they are healthy, again, this is a team that can go a long way because they have one of the most dominant players on the planet right now. The Magic are a team that I'm circling. They might be a team that I'm a little bit high on here, but the Magic are a team that I'm circling as well that could take that next step. They bring in KCP, an elite defender, adds some three-point shooting, which was their biggest weakness. They're looking at a lot of guys to take a step forward. They give out a big contract to Jalen Suggs yesterday. He's looking to take a step forward. Everyone on that roster theoretically could take a step forward, and that's what I'm banking on. I don't think they're going to be top-tier contenders in the East, but I think if everyone takes a step forward, which is something that team is liable to do. They're a very, very young team with a lot of really good young players on it. They could all have developed and taken a step forward. They should be treated as contenders in the East. And then, of course, the Bucks. You've got Dame. You've got Giannis. That's really all you need. Chris Middleton is hurt again, but they should be fine in the regular season, finding a top 4 seed in the East. You get to these other teams that I think have a chance of making noise, but probably won't. In the East, you have a team like the Pacers. They went on a deep run. They made it to the finals last year. I think Tyrese Halliburton is a great player. I don't think that the Pacers did enough this offseason to really elevate themselves to that contender status in the East. You have a team like the Cavs, who, much like the Pacers, I think are in a similar boat. They didn't do too much. They fired their coach. I don't know if that's going to make a huge difference. They're still going to be a good team. Obviously, the Heat, going to be solid. They have Jimmy Butler. They've got Bam. They don't do anything in the regular season, and I'm not sure how long they can continue to coast off of that, though, so I'm not 100% confident in them. And then the Raptors. They've got a lot of young talent. Scotty Barnes, of course, could make an All-NBA team this year. Maybe. I'm not super high on the Raptors, but I think they're the last one of those teams in the East that I think could even have a chance of, making a surprise run. The rest of the teams in the East are kind of bad. You've got the Hornets, you've got the Hawks, you got the Wizards, you got the Nets, you got the Bulls, and you, of course, have the Pistons, right? These are all really bad teams. One of them is going to make a play-in spot. I'm leaning towards the Hawks, but, I'm not sure. The bottom of the East is going to be atrocious. There's going to be a real tank off for Cooper Flagg, and it's going to be interesting. But getting over to the West, this conference is almost the opposite of the East. You, of course, have some of those teams that just, I don't think, have much of a chance of competing. The Jazz, the Trailblazers, the Clippers, I don't think have a chance of competing, especially without Kawhi. But even with Kawhi, I don't think they really had too much of a shot. I'm going to maybe... No, I'm not going to do that. But those three teams, I don't think really have much of a shot, especially in a West that goes 10, 11, 12 teams deep. They could all make some noise. Obviously, at the top, you have your number one seed from last year, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They go out and they might have improved the most out of any single team this offseason. They sign Isaiah Hartenstein. They go and trade Josh Giddey, who is one of the big liabilities on that team, for Alex Caruso. That is a pretty much one-for-one major upgrade for them. They had a great offseason, and they could get the number one overall pick if the Clippers suck enough, because they can do a pick swap unprotected right there. That is insane what Sam Presti has been able to do over there in OKC. They are the favorites, in my opinion. Getting past them, the other title contenders, obviously you have the Mavericks, who made it to the finals last year. Were the representative for the West. You have the Grizzlies getting John Morant back, the Suns with their big three getting a little bit more depth, and the Nuggets with Nikola Jokic and their big two over there. So there's a lot of contenders that we can talk about here. And we're going to start off over there with the Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies are a team that, especially with John Morant, if he can stay healthy, can make a deep run in the Western Conference. We've seen it before. When John Morant is healthy and he's on the court, that is a much different team. That is a team that can beat just about anybody on any given night. That Grizzlies team is really, really good. Just need to stay healthy, just need to stay out of trouble. And John Morant, if he can do that, he might surprise some people. He could be a dark horse MVP possibly this year. Obviously, you have some more teams that continued to do really good, have more established stars in, the Suns with their big three, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal. They're going to be just fine in the regular season. The question comes in playoff time. Can their depth step up? Can their defense do enough to hold off some of these bigger opponents, like the Timberwolves, who, made an interesting move for Julius Randle? I think it's kind of a one-for-one, but you add some shooting over there as well. I think this is a good team. I think they didn't really improve too much. I still don't like that Rudy Gobert is anchoring them, but this is going to be a good regular season team, and Anthony Edwards just continues to grow as a player and a star off the court. And of course, the Nuggets. You can't get away from the Western Conference without talking about the MVP that's won the guy that's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. That being Nikola Jokic. This is a guy and a team that got worse in the offseason, but still are going to be a real threat. You can't just lower your guard against them. They definitely did get worse. They're not title favorites anymore, not Western Conference favorites, but they still are contenders. And I don't remember if I talked about the Mavs, but they add Klay Thompson. One of their bigger weaknesses was shooting consistency. Their ability to shoot with Luka, but they didn't have that second option because Kyrie went cold in the playoffs a lot. They got their defense kind of figured out. They need Klay to be that kind of 3-and-D spot-up shooter. He doesn't need to do all that much. I think that's a great fit for the Mavs with Klay Thompson, and I think they absolutely improved. These are the teams that could make a run. And then outside of those, there's still a couple of other teams that I peg as a team that could, if all the chips lie the right way, could make a little bit of noise in the West. Obviously, you have Zion and the Pelicans if he's healthy. You've got Steph Curry and the Warriors, these teams that are led by this one star aging or injured or not. That does make a lot of difference, but they don't have too much help outside of it. Those two teams, I think, could make some noise. Same thing with the Lakers. The Lakers obviously have LeBron James, so I'm never going to count them out, but I don't think they're true contenders, especially in this deep of a Western Conference. The Kings, I have a soft spot for. I just kind of like that Kings team. I don't think they're really going to make any noise, but I think they could be a play-in team, possibly. Again, this Western Conference goes 12 teams deep, in my opinion. And then the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama and adding Chris Paul to that mix, adding, Dillingham as well. This is a good team. I love their offseason. They are a team that I think could make that huge step this year as well. So there's a lot of teams that could make a lot of noise in the West. It's going to be a mess this year, especially in the West, and I cannot wait to see what happens. My dark horse MVP, I already talked a little bit about John Morant, but I think Victor Wembanyama is a guy that deserves a little bit of love there as well. My finals matchup, I kind of talked about it, foreshadowed a little bit. Maybe it's boring here, but I think the Thunder are the best team in the West. And I think the Celtics just are a juggernaut right now. I think the Knicks are a team that could give them trouble, but I have a little bit of pause based on their interior defense. So I'm going to go with the Celtics and the Thunder to get out of their respective conferences. And I'm giving this one to the Thunder. I think the Thunder get that win with that young core. I think this is going to be a fun season. Maybe the Thunder win a championship and get the number one overall pick, and that would be the most NBA thing that I could possibly imagine. But I cannot wait for this NBA season. It's going to be a lot of fun to keep up to date with. It tips off tonight. LeBron and the Lakers take on Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves. That is, the tip-off game. Should be a lot of fun. Tune in for that tonight. But we're going to take a quick break here. Let me know what you think of my NBA predictions. Who's your finals matchup? Who do you have winning? Love to hear your thoughts. When we come back, we officially start our Rankings Tuesday. The Power Rankings coming up next here for Week 8 of the NFL. Stick around. You're listening to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. If you are just tuning in, we just did a full NBA season preview. Go ahead and check that out. We went over contenders, we picked favorites, we picked our NBA Finals prediction as well, and of course, we went over some dark horse teams that could make a bit of a run. In this segment, we start off our Ranking Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we do our NFL Power Rankings and our college football top 25. We start off, as always, in this segment with the first half of the Week 8 NFL Power Rankings, numbers 32 to 17. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 22nd. But like I was saying, getting into our first half of the NFL Power Rankings for Week 8, we have here for you, starting off right at the bat at number 32, the Carolina Panthers, right back at the bottom of the league. They haven't been here for quite some time, but they've made their way back down, losing to the Marcus Mariota-led Washington Commanders by a score of 40-7. Does not inspire a lot of confidence. They were moving up a little bit in a couple of weeks prior, due to Andy Dalton giving that spark to the offense. That spark has all but worn off, and we're seeing the ugly interior, right? That defense, atrocious. The offense can't get much going unless they're playing a team like the Raiders, right? Or the Bengals. Two really bad defenses over there. The Panthers get their rightful spot back at the bottom with number 32 in this week's power rankings. At number 31, we have the New England Patriots coming off of a brutal loss over there in Old England in London. The New England Patriots have hope. Drake May looks really good, but they cannot stop the run. They can't. The Jaguars at one point ran the ball 17 straight times, and it did not matter. The Patriots could not stop them. Tank Bigsby goes off 26 carries for 4.5 yards per carry, almost 150 yards for him, and a touchdown as well. They just got absolutely ran over in London by the Jaguars, a team that doesn't have an elite offensive line, a team that was really struggling, a team that if the Patriots had won, I think would have fired their head coach. Now Doug Peterson gets to live another week. Patriots are down 4 spots to number 31. Excuse me. At number 30, it's the Cleveland Browns. They lose Deshaun Watson for the year. Obviously, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but the silver lining is Deshaun Watson was playing awful, and I don't think the quarterback situation can get much worse for Cleveland if we're talking on a strictly quarterback kind of motive here, right? We take a look at this team. They get Nick Chubb back. That is an awesome story, but this is a bad team. The defense continues to not step up the way that they were doing last season, and it's hard to expect them to do that year in and year out. You need some help from the offense, but still, getting a guy like Jameson, maybe DTR, I think Jameis would be the right answer. We've seen DTR play a couple of games. He hasn't looked too good. Jameis threw a touchdown, at least in garbage time, so I think he'll be the starter over there, and you need to have a serious conversation about what you do with Deshaun Watson in the future. He's got 2 years left on his contract, both with $72 million cap hit. That's almost $145 million in cap hit, almost 150. It's ridiculous how much money is owed to Deshaun Watson. The Cleveland Browns have a tough decision on their hands. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. At 29, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. We just finished talking about them. They did a great job running the ball against the New England Patriots. They did what they needed to do. They got out of London with a win. Trevor Lawrence played some good football. His receivers did not drop the ball. They played clean football. They played solid football. They got some of their defenders back, and I think that was one of the big things. Although Drake May was still able to push the ball downfield against them, they got some of their cover corners back, and I think it made a big difference. Obviously, that offensive line played great. I want to see it against a better team before I really start to think this team is any good. They have a schedule that's tough the next couple of weeks, but it's also doable to get to a respectable record if they play like they did last week down the stretch of the season. At 28, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. They lose Aiden O'Connell. I don't think putting Gardner Minshew in there is really going to make that big of a difference. The biggest question with this team is the defense. Obviously, Antonio Pierce as the head coach is on the hot seat already. Max Crosby was the one that advocated for him. It sounds like Max Crosby wants out. He said, I'm not here to rebuild, I'm here to win. Not sure if that matches up with the Raiders' timeline, the way that they're going right now, but there is some silver lining. Brock Bowers continues to play really good football. We have a guy in Gardner Minshew that can and has shown in the ability even in the past, even just last season, to turn the switch and just be a solid quarterback. He hasn't done that this year. I don't know if that's the Raiders scheme or not, but still, the Raiders have a lot of holes. They're here at 28. At 27, it's the Titans. They put in Mason Rudolph. It did not help against a Bills defense, a Bills team that felt reinvigorated after trading for Amari Cooper. This is a Titans team that has a lot of issues. Again, a lot of what I said about the Raiders can be said about the Titans, that except for the fact that defense, I still think is really good. I love the additions that they've made. The offense is really struggling. They're not able to get it to their weapons like a Calvin Ridley. They're not able to get it to DeAndre Hopkins. Their running backs, their running back tandem there, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, are not good enough. The offensive line is doing better, but it's still not great. The offense has a lot of holes. The defense, I think, is fine. They gave up a lot of points in this game, but it's the Bills. It's acceptable. I think the Titans have a recipe to potentially win some more games, but I'm not super high on them. They're here at 27. At 26, it's the Giants, and my God, did they look awful. We talked about losing Andrew Thomas, their star offensive tackle, last week when he went down with the Liz Frank injury. You see the result of not having him back there. 8 sacks. 8 sacks. That's awful. That is ridiculous. You cannot have that happen. Against an Eagles front, that's good, but they're not 8 sacks in a game good. This isn't a world-beating front four. You need to be able to defend. You need to be able to stop a pass rush, and they can't do that. The Giants are cooked without Andrew Thomas, and I mean, it doesn't look like it's getting any better anytime soon. The Giants are here at 26. At 25, it's the New Orleans Saints. The Saints looked equally as bad as the Giants did against the Broncos, the homecoming for Sean Payton on Thursday night. Spencer Rattler, coming off of a solid performance 2 weeks ago in his first ever start, got shut down by a good Broncos defense. This is a Saints team that is weaponless now due to injuries. Everyone is down. The run game can't get anything going, and that does not inspire confidence for the future of this team. This is a lost season. Sell the team, get rid of every piece, trade Alvin Kamara for something you can get, trade away some of those defenders. You need to start tanking. I think the Saints will be sellers at the deadline for the first time in a very, very long time. At 24, it's the Jets. And my God, are the Jets just a dumpster fire. They make 2 straight desperation moves, and it still doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers not able to get on the same page with his receivers. He keeps throwing bad interceptions. The one thing about Aaron Rodgers that has made him so elite for so long, not only is his ability to fit it into tight windows, make these accurate throws, but it's the fact that he never turned the ball over. The best touchdown to interception ratio in the history of the National Football League, and now he's throwing at least 2 interceptions a game. That is not the Aaron Rodgers we know. He needs to calm down. I don't know what it is. He is either washed at this point, which I'm not fully ready to buy into, because you see some of the throws he's able to make, and it's hitting these receivers in the hands. There's a lot of issues with this team. That defense needs to shape up, play like they were at the beginning of the season. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to beat anyone. Giving up 37 points to the Russell Wilson-led Steelers is an embarrassment, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. At 23, it's the Dolphins. I'm giving them a small bump this week because Tua's coming back. And maybe that's a little bit preemptive of me, but with Tua, maybe the weapons can do something finally. Maybe the weapons can finally get something done. I'm not a big believer in this Dolphins team the way it stands. The defense is absolutely broken right now. They played solid football against a Colts team that wants to lose the game a lot of the time. But if Tim Boyle is your backup plan at any point, it's not good. I don't know why Skylar Thompson wasn't the backup. I don't know why they continue to roster Tim Boyle. He is an awful player. He should not be on an NFL sideline. He should not be paid by an NFL team. I don't know why teams keep giving him a chance. He's not good. He was never good. Get him off of the football rosters. Every single one. There should be an anti-Tim Boyle rule. At 22, it's the Dallas Cowboys. They come off of a bye week in a spot that makes them look slightly better. A lot of teams looked bad, but they are not in a good spot. CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott need to get on the same page. They need to get a running game going, and there was salt rubbed in the wound on Monday Night Football. They said, Derrick Henry could have been a Cowboy, in more words, basically. And that's a brutal look for the Cowboys because that would solve a lot of their issues right there. Cowboys here at number 22, it wouldn't solve all of them because that defense is still awful. They have a lot of work to do. They're not out of it in an NFC that's kind of muddled near the middle. At 21, it's those Indianapolis Colts. We saw Anthony Richardson get some action back in the game. He looked okay. I'm high on him. I'm trying to be a forgiving guy with him, but he's running his leash thin. He needs to stop fumbling the ball. He needs to be smarter with the ball. He needs to stop being so careless with his possessions. This is a Colts team that can win some games, but they need him to step up because Anthony Richardson they're going to live and die by him, and they need to live by him more than he's willing to let them. At 20, it's the Los Angeles Chargers, a brutal loss for them. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone last week. We talked all about it in segment 1. Justin Herbert played a great football game. He doesn't deserve all of this losing. I think the Chargers are going to be really good in the next couple of years, but it's not happening this year. At 19, it's those Cardinals. They barely scraped by with a victory against the Los Angeles Chargers. James Conner does a great job. I love James Conner's been playing awesome football. He is the heart and soul of that team right now. I don't know why they're not able to get Marvin Harrison involved, but I was very impressed by that defense and their defensive effort against a good rushing team, a team that in the Cardinals that has given up a lot of rushing yards all season long. The Cardinals are here at 19. At 18, we have those Cincinnati Bengals. They continue to climb their way back up the ranks. Another win against another bad team, but they're on a bit of a win streak. And if they get some momentum going and the defense continues to play solid like they have been, especially with the interior defensive line, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase getting more comfortable, getting more, reps together again. It's been a while since they played together. This team is only going to get better. The Bengals are here at 18. And last but not least for this segment, the Broncos up to number 17. They are up 3 spots in this week's power rankings. They continue to just impress me in a different way every single game. It's been the defense for a while. In this game, they finally got the running game going. They hadn't been able to get it going all season long, and you see how much of a difference maker it is when you have any semblance of a running game. Bo Nix still has a lot of work to do, and I'm still not a Bo Nix fan, but if they can get the running game going the way they were able to against the Saints, and I know it's the Saints, but if they're able to get it going the way they were able to against the Saints, this is a team that can make some noise in the playoffs, potentially. The Denver Broncos at 17. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we finish up our Week 8 NFL Power Rankings, 16-1, so make sure you stick around for that here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. If you are just tuning in, we just went over the first half of the NFL Power Rankings, 32-17 on this beautiful Rankings Tuesday. We're going to finish up our rankings here, our power rankings here in this segment. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 22nd. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are finishing up our NFL Power Rankings, continuing on from number 17, getting to 16-1, and that puts us at number 16 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We had a lot of conversation about these Pittsburgh Steelers when we talked about them last week. The quarterback change, one that took me by surprise. But that's why I'm not the head coach of a football team for 18 years. That's why I'm not a successful football coach like Mike Tomlin. He made the right decision. Russell Wilson looked really good. I want to give him some credit, but it was against a Jets defense that was both injured and has been struggling for the last couple of weeks. So I still want to put a shadow of doubt on there, and I'm sure now they are here at 16. At number 15, the Los Angeles Rams. They are finally starting to get healthy. They get Cooper Kupp back on Thursday. Puka Nacua was just activated out off of the IR. His 21-day practice window has opened. I don't expect him to be back for Thursday, but a big game, especially in a division as close as top at just 4-3 right now, or 3-4, I forget. They're still in this race. They really are. So if they continue to play like they are, especially defensively, with the way that Kyron Williams is running the ball, having a nose for the end zone, I believe he's at like 15 straight games with a touchdown, which is ridiculous. Rams are going to continue to be a threat here in the NFC. At 14, it's the Bucs. The Bucs coming off of a brutal loss, not just because of they're in danger of going into a free fall here. Luckily for them, the NFC South continues to just be a jumbling of mediocre to bad. So they still have a shot in here at this one, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need a lot of things to go their right way, like we talked about in the first segment of the show. At 13, the Atlanta Falcons, the other running mate. They play each other this week, Falcons and Bucks. That is a massive game. We saw the Falcons win the first one. If the Falcons win this one, I think the Bucks are basically all but out of the division race. Kirk Cousins and the Falcons need to play a lot better than they did against the Seahawks if they want that to happen. Neither of these teams are really, juggernauts or anything, but they're solid to good, mediocre teams. They can beat anybody if they play good football. At number 12, the Seattle Seahawks. They just took down the Dirty Birds in Atlanta. They lose DK Metcalf for a little bit, but Geno Smith is back to playing good football. That's what we've been waiting on. When you get everyone involved, when you get a good game out of Kenny Walker, this is the kind of game that the Seahawks can play. The defense stepped up a lot on this one. You finally got some health back. Boy, Mafe made a really good play against Kirk Cousins, leading to a fumble 6, a scoop and score, if you will. This was a really complete game by the Seahawks, and they have the ability to play like that. They just don't do it every week. This was a game that they were placed on fraud watch by me, and they proved to me not completely frauds yet. They're still on fraud watch, but they did a very good job of staying on the good side of it for now. At 11, we have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers played awful. Period. They played awful. They're still a good team. They lose a lot of their weapons, but they played really, really bad against the Chiefs. A Chiefs defense that is playing as one of the best units in the game right now, but still a lot of issues with this team. Obviously, losing Brandon Ayuk sucks. Now your number one receiver with Deebo Samuel being hurt for at least a little bit of time is going to be Ricky Pearsall, who went through that shooting earlier on in the offseason. He made his first appearance, played solid. Juwan Jennings is still hurt. They have a lot of issues on this team as far as injuries go. They are not out of it because of the way that their division is, but it's not looking like a typical San Francisco 49ers year. At number 10, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley, 176 yards and a touchdown in his homecoming against the New York Giants. A revenge game. He went full revenge mode. The Eagles played their best game of the season by a mile. That defense, like I said, played really good. 8 sacks. The offense didn't turn the ball over. Saquon Barkley led the way. That running game is so important in today's NFL, and we are seeing that. If you can combine it, go off of play action, it makes your team just that much better. The Eagles cracked their way back into the top 10 for the first time in a while. If they can play like they did against the Giants, they are back to being true contenders. At number 9 is the Chicago Bears. They were on a bye. Don't have too much to say about them. Caleb Williams continues to get better every single week. We will see if that trend continues this week when, we'll see if that trend continues this week when they take on potentially they take on the number 2 overall pick in Washington with the Commanders. The Bills up here at number 8. Josh Allen looks like a completely different quarterback. That's not true. He's been playing great ball the whole time, but this Bills team has been looking like a completely different team with the addition of Amari Cooper. You get that true number 1 receiver. That's what you've been waiting on if you are the Bills offense. You get another running back. Ray Davis has been playing awesome with James Cook continuing to be wishy-washy with his health. That defense played really good against the Titans, to be fair, but still I really liked what I saw out of Josh Allen, Amari Cooper, and the Bills. They're back up into the top 10 at number 8. At number 7, it's those Washington Commanders. Hopefully Jaden Daniels' injury isn't that bad, but Marcus Mariota can come in there and be serviceable. 40 points against the Panthers is like 30 points against anybody else. So still really, really good, but we're going to take that with a grain of salt. We'll see what happens with the Commanders as we head into a big matchup this week for the Commanders against those Bears at home. Potential 1 versus 2 overall pick in the draft would suck if he is not there. At number 6 is the Vikings. They suffer their first loss of this NFL season, a close one. They end up losing on a game-winning field goal, a walk-off field goal by Jake Bates and the Lions. They played really good. That defense continues to play solid. Sam Darnold didn't play his best game, but he played good enough. That Lions defense is good. That Vikings defense is really, really good as well. This is a great Vikings team. They are not anywhere near fraud watch. They are still comfortably in the top 6. And honestly, you can play around with this top 6. I think this top 6 teams in this week's power rankings are pretty clearly the top 6 teams in the league. At number 5, it's those Houston Texans. Another game that they end up losing on a walk-off field goal. The Packers and the Texans both played really good games. The Texans weren't really able to get their wide receivers involved too much. Tank Dell didn't catch the ball. Stephon Diggs didn't have too much production, but they were still able to keep pace with the Packers. CJ Stroud didn't have his best game, but you did have Joe Mixon go off yet again. And with Joe Mixon, this team is a completely different animal. You see that week in and week out. You see the difference with him on the ball and with him out of the game. This is just a really good Houston Texans team. I don't have too many notes on this one. They're here at number 5. At number 4, it's those Green Bay Packers, the team that wins by a field goal, by a hair, against the Houston Texans. Jordan Love continues to play great football. He's getting Romeo Doubs involved more and more, a guy that a lot of people thought would be on the outs. Jaden Reed and a lot of those young weapons also continue to get involved. Josh Jacobs caught his first ever touchdown last week. He went the longest time, the most amount of caught passes without a receiving touchdown. He still has that record, but it's no longer ongoing. Very tough to beat there. This is a great Packers team. It's a great NFC North. You see 3 of them in the top 6, all 4 of them in the top 10. The Green Bay Packers are a number 4 team. At number 3, it's those Detroit Lions. How about the Lions? They get a big, gritty win. David Montgomery gets hurt. He's able to come back. They survive a David Montgomery fumble, and they win the game on a walk-off field goal. Jared Goff has thrown more touchdown passes over the last 4 weeks than incompletions. He has thrown himself very much into the MVP conversation and the MVP race. This is a Lions team whose defense has shown much improvement. Brian Branch in that secondary, to go along with a lot of those young players back there, has been a game changer. It is awesome to see a guy like that back there. The Lions are the number 3 team this week. At number 2, it's the Ravens. The Ravens look like world beaters. With Derrick Henry just going for 150 yards every single week, no one can stop them. Lamar Jackson, even if you can slow him down, Lamar Jackson can throw for 5 touchdowns on your head and 400 yards. Lamar Jackson, much like Jared Goff, putting together another MVP quality campaign. Maybe he wins 2 in a row. He's my MVP frontrunner right now. And the Ravens, as long as the defense can play a little bit better, they can beat anybody. And that leaves number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. And you can say, oh, why are they there? Again, the Kansas City Chiefs keep winning. Their defense is awesome. It might be the best defense in football right now. Patrick Mahomes has not played good. I won't try and sugarcoat that. They don't have a lot of weapons, but Kareem Hunt coming in there running the offense has been awesome. This is a Chiefs team with lots of weaknesses, but no one has been able to exploit them. So until they lose, they are on number 1. Let me know what you thought of these rankings. Love to hear your thoughts. We're going to run through the top 10 real quick. Eagles 10, Bears 9, Bills 8, Commanders 7, Vikings 6, Texans 5, Packers 4, Lions 3, Ravens 2, and of course the Kansas City Chiefs at 1. We're going to take a quick break here. I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we come back, we finish out our show with the college football top 25 and the group of 5 top 5. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the NFL Power Rankings 32-1. You can go and check that out if you are interested. In this segment, we turn our attention to college football. Week 9 is upon us. It has been a wild weekend, a wild couple of weeks in college football. Changes all around the top 25. We go over that in just 1 second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 22nd. But like I was saying, we are going to finish off our show here with the college football top 25. But as always, we started off with the group of 5 top 5. Obviously, with the new playoff format, the top 5 group of 5 teams do have a difference. With the way that these games have been played, we have a chance to have not just 1, but maybe even 2 group of 5 teams in there. So this is even more important than it was at the beginning of the season. At number 5, Washington State. They continue to just win football games. Their sole loss, of course, coming against Boise State earlier on in the season. That is a quality loss right there, a top 20 loss, a very, very good football team in Washington State and in the Pac-12. You have the service academies at 4-3, with Navy and Army continuing to both be undefeated. The Black Knights and the midshipmen continue to win football games in pretty dominant fashions. I'm a big fan of both of these service academies. They both face a big test coming up. Navy takes on Notre Dame this week. That should be a massive one. UNLV at number 2. They also have a big game this week, but with Haj Malik Williams, they continue to win football. Again, they just continue to win. They continue to look really good. Boise State on a bye takes on UNLV. Boise State with Ashton Denty. UNLV taking on Boise State, a must-watch group of 5 matchup coming up this week. But getting into the top 25, before we do that, we have some honorable mentions. Some teams that just missed out. Ranks 30-26. South Carolina, Washington State, Colorado, Illinois, and Navy just missed the top 25 for me personally this week. If they continue to perform the way they do and some other teams fall, I could easily see a lot of them getting into the top 25. But without further ado, sitting at number 25 is Vanderbilt. The Commodores have played a really solid season. They've taken Missouri to overtime. They obviously beat Alabama. They just went in and beat Ball State, beat Virginia Tech in overtime. This is a very good Vanderbilt team. They deserve to be ranked. They get a massive matchup with Texas this week. Should be a lot of fun. Commodores at 25. At 24, it's Army. They are ranked in my rankings for the first time. They've been ranked in the AP Top 25 for 2 straight weeks. Army has been dominant with the way that they have been able to run and pass on everybody. They have not showed any signs of slowing down, and Army is a juggernaut right now. They are in at 24. At 23, it's UNLV. We talked about them in our Group of 5 top 5. They are our second Group of 5 team in the top 25 already. This has been a chaotic year, and it's been awesome for the Group of 5. UNLV continues to show up on national stages. They play on Thursdays and Fridays, and they continue to win these games, or at least put up a fight. They look really, really good. I'm a big fan of these Rebels. At 22, it's Pitt, another undefeated team. Pitt coming off of a bye. We'll see if they can continue it. They're probably the weakest team that I think is in the top 25 right now, but they're undefeated. They've beaten some solid teams in West Virginia and Cal, and they had a massive comeback against Cincinnati, sending Cincinnati their lone loss after Cincinnati just played a really good game against a good team earlier this week. At 21, it's Syracuse, a team I've been very high on all season long. The Orange have completely turned this program around. Their sole loss coming on a walk-off against Stanford. They played really good football for every single week outside of that. I think they let their guard down for that Stanford game, but they get a big test this week. Before coming back home and taking on Virginia Tech. That should be another fun one. The Syracuse Orange, I think, are getting severely underrated in the national poll. They're in my number 21 team. At 20, it's SMU. The Mustangs continue to play good football. They beat Louisville earlier, just a couple weeks ago. They are on a path for a potential ACC title in their first year in the ACC. That would be really cool storybook stuff. I think this SMU team has the juice to do it. At 19, it's Missouri. They're the other team I thought about taking off, but they get a big, gutsy win against Auburn. They're very much on fraud watch. They haven't really blown any big team out. They obviously took a massive loss. They got absolutely destroyed by Texas A&M a couple of weeks ago, but they have a big game this week. They can turn all the haters into fans again if they're able to win this week. At number 18, you have the Ole Miss Rebels coming off of a bye after losing an overtime game to LSU. I'm not ready to call it quits on them, but they are again on fraud watch. They've been out physicaled in a lot of these games. In both of the games that they've lost, they've been out physicaled. They need to prove that they can be the more physical team. I haven't seen that yet out of them. They need to prove that as SEC play continues. The Ole Miss Rebels are at 18. At 17, it's Alabama. Alabama, a team that is also on fraud watch. They've lost 2 out of their last 3 games, losing to Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Something about the water in Tennessee just is not meshing with them. They have a chance to redeem themselves this week when they play against Missouri. That should be a fun game. Both of those teams on fraud watch. It won't take them off of it, but I think both of those teams are just about eliminated. This could be the final nail in the coffin for one of these two teams as far as the college football playoff goes. At 16, it's K-State. Kansas State continues to defy me. I can't get this team. Every time I think they're going to do great, they get blown out. Every time I think they're going to lose, they blow the other team out. They've been playing really good football the last couple of weeks. They continue to get better. Avery Johnson, a quarterback that I didn't love early in the season, is having me turn the corner on him. This is a great K-State team, and they are in the mix for that Big 12 title. At 15, it's Boise State, our third Group of 5 team to crack the top 25. A massive, a huge accomplishment for this Group of 5 program. Boise State gets maybe their biggest test remaining in this season against UNLV. They obviously took Oregon deep. This is a really good Boise State team. Don't sleep on them. They're at number 15. At 14, it's the Texas A&M Aggies. The Aggies continue to just really prove me wrong. Again, that quarterback change, it was a huge need. They needed to make that change, and has made that offense look 10 times better. They suffered that loss to Notre Dame early in the season. Outside of that, they have been awesome. They continue to climb the ranks, and right now, they are at the top of the SEC. Maybe they win the SEC this year. That would be a crazy thing to think, though. At 13, it's BYU. They escape a heart-wrenching game, a absolutely heart attack of a game, near walk-off for them. BYU continues to be undefeated. This is a magical season for them. They're a very good football team, but their turnover luck started to wane, and we saw the issues start to show. BYU is not a perfect team. They're a very good team. You can beat them, though, if you just play smart football. They escape with a win. They're up to 13. At 12, it's Indiana. How about the Hoosiers? Kurt Cignetti has these Hoosiers 7-0 for just the second time in program history. College game day is coming to Bloomington, Indiana. The Hoosiers get a massive game in a couple of weeks against Ohio State. They have a real chance of going 11-1 and winning and making the college football playoff if they continue playing like this. At 11, it's Tennessee. A big win over Alabama, but neither of those teams played great. I wasn't a big fan of either of those teams when we watched them play. Tennessee gets the win. It was a massive win for them. They're only up one spot in my ranking, though. They need to show me a lot more. At 10, it's LSU, another team that's on top of the SEC. They are probably SEC favorites right now, which is crazy to think in a conference with Texas and Georgia and, all these other teams at the top. But LSU continues to just be the most consistent football team, which is not what you expect out of LSU. They have had some road bumps, but still LSU, the top 10 team, the number one in the SEC right now. Notre Dame's at 9. Outside of that struggle against NIU, which, sucks and it really hurts their ranking and what everything else looks like, but they've gotten a lot of quality wins. They can prove that they deserve to be up here, and they've changed with the win against Navy this week. That's going to be a big game. We will see what happens when they take them on this Saturday. At 8, it's Iowa State, another one that escapes at the last second. They were in some real danger there, but they continue to be up there at the top with their Big 12 teams. Iowa State is a Big 12 favorite. I think they're just about a lock to make the playoffs as long as nothing goes horribly wrong. That offense needs to start playing better, but that defense is really good. At 7, it's Penn State, a team that I am lower on than a lot of other people. They are, of course, undefeated, which goes a long way, but still, I haven't been impressed by a lot of their victories. The USC victory, they nearly lost. They almost lost to Bowling Green. West Virginia in week 1 was pretty solid, but I wasn't super impressed by them then either. I need to see a lot more out of this team before I move them into the top 3 like everyone else seems to have. At number 6, it is Clemson. The Tigers, outside of week 1 loss to Georgia, have been lights out dominant. The Tigers are just so good. They really are. I think they have a real chance to win the national championship this year with the way they've been playing outside of week 1. This is a really good Clemson team. They're at 6. At 5, it's Texas. They take a brutal loss at home to Georgia, a game that they needed to win to prove that they were the dominant force in college football. They're unable to do that, and chaos reigns supreme. I still like this Texas team a lot. They're still a top 5 team in the nation, but they do have some holes, and I think that Georgia game is going to help them fix it. 4 goes to Miami. That offense is crazy. Fireworks all over the place against Louisville. It's going to be dangerous. They need to be able to play better defense. They've been unable to do that all season long, but still, Cam Ward looking like a true Heisman contender. This Hurricanes team is a lot of fun to watch. Miami is here at 4. At 3, it is Ohio State. They're on a bye. Still, though, very good. They get a couple more games that they can prove themselves. Obviously, with the loss against Oregon last week, they get Indiana coming up soon. Obviously, they have the Michigan game coming up. That one doesn't mean as much this season as it has in years past, but still a fun team to watch. This is a Buckeyes team that I think could go a long way this season. At number 2, it's the Georgia Bulldogs, maybe the biggest win of the season, taking down number 1 Texas, but still, I don't think they did enough to take that number 1 spot back after that loss to Alabama continues to age poorly. Because of that, the number 1 team is the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks have just played the best football. They started off shaky, but they have played the best football down the stretch here. They have looked like the most complete and competent team, and they figured out their weaknesses early on in the season when they had some weaker opponents. And now that they're getting to the meat of their schedule, they're starting to look a little bit unstoppable. This is a really good Oregon Ducks team, and they are my number 1 team in the nation. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who you have as the number 1 team. Anyone that you thought I was way off on, love to hear your thoughts. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Tomorrow, we'll be back here, same time, same place, talking about everything that's going on in the world of sports. The opening day in the NBA. Of course, our rookie report and much more going on in the world of sports. I will see you then. You will have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Tired of shit in the